booster cushions anyway.
I got a booster on this thing. There we go.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, wow.
We'll be through with peanuts and drinks after. Oh, boy.
Okay. Call to order the Rockport Select Board meeting for Monday, May 13th. We're here in the new renovated Parker Room at the Rockport Opera House. And welcome to members of the public who are here. We're going to make one switch to the agenda. We're going to do the town manager's report first because Jason Peasley, Chief Peasley, has some information related to that, and he just got back from an emergency event, so we want to get him home, and then we'll move to the public comment on the ballot articles. So, John?
So I'll save the rest of whatever ideas I want to share with my report, but I think the most important thing and why we want to have Chief's involvement here is under the section that talks about EMS. We're ready to begin taking those steps down the road of moving towards a first responder program. This has been something that was part of the select board's budget a year ago, so this isn't anything that is contingent on the vote in June. This is really contingent on the vote that happened last June. And so Chief, and obviously there's been a lot of work that went into what's next, and the board has talked a great deal about that, but where we are today and the staffing we have and the equipment we have, I'm confident with the Chief's plan and that we can begin, start involving a first responder program. So I'm not gonna say a whole lot more, but Chief, what do you want to add to that? I know he's got to go because they just had a pretty involved woods fire in Lincolnville, so that's why he brought the smoke with him on his clothes, so and the mud. So Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, Chief. Go.
So Wednesday morning, 7 a.m., we will be starting the first responder program. An email was sent to Northeast to inform them that we'd be working with them hand in hand. We will be covering 7 days a week from 7 a.m. To 6 p.m. while the on-duty firefighters are there. They are all certified and trained now, so anytime there's any type of EMS event in Rockport, we will respond to 99%. The 1% we're not going to go to is the hospital. It just doesn't make sense for us to go to the hospital where all your surgeons and everybody else are there ready to go. We've met. We have 10 people that are jumping on board. The 2 full-time guys will handle the day-to-day calls, depending on the level of the call. If it's an exceeded level, then additional personnel will be responding as well to give a helping hand. We will be responding with the squad for now until other equipment comes in, but we will respond with that depending on, again, the nature of the call. Most of the time it will be non-emergency. Certain locations, everything on Route 1 to the ocean, we'll have to take the pickup because most of those roads and driveways are very, very difficult to maneuver. We have a list that we're putting out soon, or an ad out soon for per diem, people to cover shifts. So if Mike or Jamie goes on vacation, we have someone to come in and cover so that we can continue with the EMS.
Could you just maybe in terms of the staffing, we have one full-time firefighter who's also an EMT who is working between those hours of 7 and 6 daily. That's every day of the week, winter, summer, whatever it might be. So we have one person responding to that, and we have additional per diem who will fill those voids. But the level of care none of these individuals are paramedics at present, and really their responsibility, Jason, you can go into this greater detail, is to stabilize the situation when they arrive on scene and prepare them for transport, which Northeast Mobile Health, who is our contractor for transport of EMS, they'll be transporting, right? So it's instead of a one-part process, it becomes a bit of a two-part process if necessary. But the benefit should be added care and better care for Rockport residents.
We are now only responding as a basic level. I mean, we do have one paramedic as well as another paramedic joining soon, but they can only respond as a basic. That's what we're permitted to right now. We'll do an assessment when we arrive on scene, stabilization if needed until Northeast arrives, or Northeast could be there well before us, and we're basically there to lend a helping hand in any way possible.
Great. And my understanding is it's a little bit partly to help our group sort of be in training, get
Correct.
familiar with how these calls work and what the issues are.
Jamie, one of the full-time that's on right now, back cleaning up all our stuff, he's got 25 years of experience. He retired from Rockland, so he's got more than enough experience.
Okay.
So most of the people we have quite a bit of experience.
Okay.
Like I said, we have medics that have 25-year medics that have been on life flight. So we have a big variety of experience levels.
Okay.
But yes, the on-duty firefighter that we've hired all have their licensing.
Okay. Any questions for Jason or Chief Peasley? Great.
I'm excited.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Happy cleaning.
No, thank you.
So elsewhere in my report, we're going to talk, as you all know, the election is on the horizon, and obviously tonight's the public hearing, so I won't go too deeply into that, but absentee ballots are available starting tomorrow. You can request them. You can pick them up at the office. There'll be eventually a mailbox, or not a mailbox, but a box to receive ballots out in front of the town office. Some have seen that. It's the metal with beautiful with the stars and stripes on it. It looks great. So you can drop that off anytime. Staff who if there's any questions about registration please call the clerk's office. They are there and they are very knowledgeable about these matters. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. As he said, so there are 2 seats, 2 3-year terms up for election on the select board, one 1-year term for the select board. There'll be 2 seats, which are a 3-year term for the library committee, 1 seat for a 3-year term on the school board, 3 seats were 3-year terms on the budget committee, and 2 seats for a 2-year term on the budget committee. So plenty to vote on other than the items that we'll be talking about tonight on the warrant. which includes the budget and the wastewater, that people have been talking about, Article 3. There's plenty to talk about there. Other matters. So the footbridge, a lot of questions have come in about the footbridge. What's going on with the footbridge? So I have good news. So our contractor was aiming for a May 15th installation. Over the last week, the biggest hurdle that we ran into was that last stamp of the engineer stamp to say, aha, this passes muster. I can report today that we've got the stamp. So that will be proceeding ahead. I suspect we'll have it installed within the next week.
Great.
That will give us plenty of time before the Memorial Day weekend and plenty of time, and I'm looking at Orion for the Donut Festival. So good things all around, and we're very excited about that. The storm repairs are proceeding. Some have seen probably Walker Park got a nice facelift thanks to the storm beating the coastline pretty strongly. And of course, as we all know, Almaron Marine Park, over by the fisherman's side, everything took a beating in the harbor. So we have a cruise that will be starting, I think, tomorrow. And we just had a sinkhole open up at the bottom of School Street. So I'm not sure if that will change things. But in any event, we have to stay on our toes here. So we'll be working around to really stabilize that parking area at the bottom, just beyond Rockport Marine, all around to the boat club. That whole area is severely undermined and needs a lot of TLC. There'll be some more work that'll be done along the river and then into the middle of the park. Proc Marine worked on a couple of other areas where they stabilized some spots. But I want to make this clear to everyone. What we're doing right now is what FEMA will allow us to do. So FEMA only wants you to put back exactly as it was before the damage occurred, which for all of us who, if you see something broken, you try to repair it so it doesn't break again. That's just a sort of common sense idea. FEMA doesn't want you to do that. So what we're forced to do really is go back and put more dirt in a hole that washed out. And we all know that it needs to be stabilized better. It needs more concrete. It needs more granite. It needs to be beefed up. We can't do that right now unless we want to, effectively ignore any reimbursement for that repair. And that would be foolish for the taxpayers and for all of us. This week, FEMA will be coming to Rockport to look at these areas of damage. They'll look at the images that have been taken of when it occurred and the water splouting up through the parking areas. And then they'll come around and look at these spots that either we've repaired, most of which we have repaired, and some of which we haven't. And go through that same process as we did with Robinson Drive. Thankfully, we're a little bit further ahead of that game now than we were, and we aren't trying to mix those messages of, I think part of our issue with Robinson Drive is we were looking at what the right solution was, and we had engineers telling us this is the right solution, but that's not the way FEMA works. So we have to think the way that, how does the better mouse get out of the better mousetrap? You got to think how the mousetrap thinks. So we have to think how FEMA thinks to work this through. I'm not saying it makes sense. I apologize to all you who look at it and say, why would you do it again? But I want you to understand it's not from anyone's anticipation that's the best practice. It's merely what we have to do to move through and get reimbursed. And then eventually we work with them and they'll allow us to go above and beyond. But that's several steps down the road. So apologies for those who are looking for more immediate action. Floats are in down at the harbor. We've got a lot of activity going on down there. All of our tie-offs were destroyed in that January storm, so Abby's having those rebuilt. We have a lot of repairs, a lot of work to be done. It's been a very, of course, we also had snow. What was it, mid April. So we're a little behind on those matters, but we're getting some things done, and I think, we're starting to see some of those summer projects that are starting up on the public works side. We've obviously, people have gone down Main Street. We've had a great deal of cutting to prepare for that project. Bay Ridge will also be seeing some work and some replacement of culverts and drainage. So it's a lot going on. If you have more questions, dig into this report. It's like 18 pages long. I think it's been a lot going on, but we're making some progress. So
Great.
that's it.
Okay, and the Donut Festival's coming up.
That's
So-
right.
Well, then we can move into the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. And this is where we will receive public comments on the annual town meeting warrant articles. And these will be voted upon by referendum on the ballots on June 11th. And as John indicated, absentee ballots are available, so you can vote before June 11th, but that's election day. So in order to just sort of receive public comment, if we could have, as we go, we'll just do it warrant article by warrant article. The first warrant article is just the moderator, so we don't need to have public comment on that. The second is what John outlined, are the positions in town that are available and that are subject to election. Article 3 is the article referring to the getting voter approval for Rockport to build its own wastewater treatment facility and extend the sewer out Route 90. And there's quite a bit of it. I don't think we need to read the warrant article. I think people, I don't think it helps to read it, but it's available to read. And there's a lot of information available on the town website about this Article 3. There will also be a public meeting on May 28th, at which we'll have more information on that warrant article as well for our voters, so everybody can understand what this is about, ask their questions. But tonight, the process is to receive public comment, and we'll start with this first, with warrant Article 3. So if we could have, apparently we don't have the roving mic tonight. People would have to come up here to the mics. But if we could have folks who want to speak against warrant Article 3 come up to the mic, if anybody's here to do that. And anybody who would like to come up and speak in favor of warrant Article 3. David?
Good evening. My name is David Pio. I'm a Rockport resident, and just wanted to come before the select board tonight to speak in favor of Article 3. A couple years ago, I served on the planning board here in town and also chaired our economic development committee, where we started looking at housing needs before it became sort of a state crisis. One of the things that we identified early on in that process was the need for expanding sanitary sewer in order to open up areas that could be developed at higher density. As a real estate developer myself, and former real estate developer and a land planner as well, I can tell you that it is very hard to get real estate projects to pencil today for a variety of reasons. But one way to help in doing that is to build higher density. And higher density cannot be built on septic systems. And what it does is create sprawl, essentially, because you need these minimum lot sizes in order to accommodate the septic fields. And that creates these very widespread, sprawling sort of lots. And so in order to get larger projects built that would pencil for either a for-profit or a nonprofit developer, it's critical to expand our sanitary sewer in order to do that. And Route 90 presents, potentially a lot of future opportunities for future development, which would be good. Here, this is not just a Rockport problem for housing, as we know, it's a state problem. But here in the Mid-Coast, not every town has a lot of land that they can build on. Camden's sort of maxed out on land, and Rockland is too to some extent. But Rockport sits right in the middle with a lot of land that could theoretically be developed. And I think by expanding sanitary sewer, it allows the town to at least solve for one piece of the puzzle of how to build housing. There are a lot of other pieces that need to be solved, but nothing can really happen until you have sanitary sewer. And ideally, over time, as we look at Rockport over the next, say, 20, 30, 40 years, when my children are maybe sitting here in this seat, we can connect sewer networks and connect these lateral lines so that we can fill in the middle rather than sprawl outwards and increase density between networks or between Camden and Rockport or Rockport and Rockland. But the first step is to build the laterals for about 90 so that then we can expand from there. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Doug? Oops, sorry.
Jeff, could I have my first slide, please? Just kidding. This is going to be mercifully short, I hope. I'm Doug Cole. I'm a Rockport resident, and I was also on the wastewater task force over this past year. I think over the public discussions that we've had recently, I think almost everybody involved in this issue agrees that the work our task force did was good from a technology standpoint as well as a location standpoint. So we could just skip by that pretty quickly. That then takes us to the $38 million that the numbers being bandied about, some even higher than that.
33. 33.8 is what
Well,
the
this is
bond
my
amount.
point. 33, some people say 38, some say 51 over the course of the thing. The whole point here is it is so early in the process, and these are such estimates that even though we had a professional engineering firm put them together, they're still just really estimates. The cost of construction's going to change. Who knows what interest will be a year or two from now. All sorts of things are going to change. But the point that I want to get to here is that when they talk about us buying into Camden's system, buying a pig in a poke, that somehow that is going to reduce our costs, I think you're just kidding yourself, because their system is 54 years old. And if you've seen all of the infiltration problems that they have around town on Pearl Street, now they're digging up Atlantic Avenue again. So any repairs that has to be done up in Camden are also going to be incredibly expensive. So don't kid yourself that somehow if our two groups can get together and make good with Camden, that it's going to be cheap, because it's not going to be. So I think we can almost ignore the cost, because it's going to be half a dozen of one, six of another. So that sort of gets us to the meat of the issue here. And that is, you hear people say, well, if you would just work with Camden, that would somehow miraculously take care of this problem. I have to say that over this past year, when I was working with this task force, not once did anybody from Camden inquire about what our group was doing, nor did they ask to come and talk to us. And we got monthly reports, at least, from our town manager and the select board about private communications that they were having with people up in Camden. And the point is, Camden had no interest whatsoever in the work that our task force was doing, although it was extremely well advertised. Again, I think we're kidding ourselves that there'll be some sort of a kumbaya moment. Camden has not asked to talk to us at all, and since we made our report public, if you look at the Camden Select Board meetings, none of this has been on their agenda. You know, they're not talking about, uh-oh, Rockport's moving ahead, should we get involved? They're basically ignoring it. So, you know, fine. If people want to explore that, that's great. Good luck with it. So finally, I just want to say, what's the cost of delay? Because that's really what we're talking about here. If we put this project off, what's gonna happen while we explore other opportunities? Well, I can guarantee you construction costs will go up during that time. Number two, any projects that people are thinking about, and this gets back to what David just said, in terms of housing, in terms of new businesses along Route 90, those are gonna get put on hold because people aren't gonna go ahead and start a new project when they don't have a sanitary sewer in place. The federal grants that are currently available, and I'm talking about the infrastructure and jobs program that came up after the COVID, that money's gonna be, well, those are gonna expire at the end of the year. So we're gonna miss a real opportunity there to get our chunk of the COVID monies if we don't act promptly. And I guess that sums it up. Next slide, please. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug.
Hi, everyone. My name's Amanda Dwelly, and I'm a Rockport resident. And I first became attuned to this issue seeing a bunch of pictures from the Camden Public Works Director, Dave St. Laurent, about all of the overflow issues in Camden and what happens in extreme rain and their kind of combined water sewer overflow and how absolutely beyond capacity their system is. And hearing about all the efforts that Rockport has taken to find a solution with Camden, I do believe that the town and select board have done everything they can, and the task force did everything they can to find another solution. Really appreciate the effort that the task force put into extreme, financial scenarios, technical scenarios, siting scenarios, figuring out some really great options for the town, working with the hospital and learning that Penn Bay could also benefit from that capacity and a facility there. So I think there's benefits not just to our community, but to our hospital, and allows the growth and expansion of the hospital over time. In general, I think this, system will be essential for kind of the growth of the town everywhere. I think there's a lot of emphasis placed on Route 90 as, one area where there is no sewer, but it also allows continued infill of everywhere along the sewer line. If we don't have new sewer, it sounds like we're on track to not being able to have any more connections or permitting. And I do think there's a huge benefit to as many properties as possible being on a public sewer system for soil and water quality everywhere, as septic systems do have so much useful life in them and do tend to go, and that is going to affect our water quality. And also the cost of private septic is quite high and is a major barrier to new development, and will also be very costly as people's septic fails along the existing sewer lines to face $20,000, $25,000 plus replacement. So I think long-term there's a big benefit to having capacity that allows us to grow into it everywhere, not just along Route 90, but everywhere around the sewer line. I would agree there's, we're at a really unique period of federal funding for wastewater, clean water infrastructure, resilience money that might have a limit on it. And I believe that, we're just seeing that the town's been able to find grants. There's, I think more grants could be found as we go. In terms of housing, I think we're looking at growth pressure in general of all forms, all ages, all income levels. We're, seeing the beginning of that. We're in a huge demographic transition with an aging population. So we not only need to kind of meet our growth pressure, but we also need a lot more year-round full-time workers in our area. And I really believe that Rockport needs to do our part and provide our part of that. We're part of a regional system. We can't be a town in the middle that says, oh, well, you can live here and you can live here, but we're not going to have growth here. We actually are the center of a lot. We are the home to the hospital and our high school. Those are big employment centers. Those are big service centers. We really need our workers to be able to live here for high quality services there. And that's a resilience thing, and actually comes down to a public health thing if we can't house people here. So really happy of the work of the task force and making something happen, even while there were still ongoing discussions with Camden. And it's a really big price tag, and I know it is, a cost, short term might be higher costs for some people on that sewer line, especially if they aren't connected, but I do believe there's kind of a pretty big upside and community benefit long-term. And hopefully, if this warrant article passed, there can be more discussions about funding or other kind of cost-sharing agreements. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Good evening. I'm Richard Remsen. I've been living in West Rockport for more than 40 years. I moved there after I left Rhode Island School of Design. I've been on many comp plans, and one of the key issues is how does Rockport grow? What kind of vision do they have? And all the comp plans have shown that you need the infrastructure in order for these growth areas to really be effective. I think this sewer initiative is a great idea. I think it's taken a long time, but this is the right moment to take advantage of it. Camden's system is more than 50 years old. They've had deferred maintenance for decades. And although friends of mine would like to continue to discuss a partnership with Camden, which I think is a reasonable request, I think the important idea is to get this sewer initiative going. If anybody has been up to Lincolnville Beach, they can see that the system that's in there has been working great. It's newer technology. The system that Rockport is proposing is a much better technology to deal with wastewater than Camden's, older system. The businesses along Route 90 in West Rockport, there are more businesses out in that area than there is in any other place in the town. It's true, West Rockport's gotten the short end of the stick with a lot of things, but that's the opportunity that the town is trying to take advantage of, and to provide a high-tech system that encourages growth in the growth areas. That's one of the elements. There's water on Route 90. There's, if we get high-speed internet on Route 90 and the sewer, you're going to see a boom in business and workforce housing. You cannot have a high-density housing in a planned way without all of the infrastructure that's necessary. And this idea, I think it would be easier for the voters to see that there's a cost on Route 90 to move the line down in there, and there's a cost for the system. You bang it all together and people think, well, that's a big number. But in the long run, if it's going to benefit Rockport citizens, if it's going to reduce their costs, monthly costs, it's a great idea. And I am all for it. So anything I can do to move it forward, I'm happy to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Jan? Oh, John. Sorry.
I'm Jan Rosenbaum. I'm a Rockport resident for the last 27 years. Some of you may know I sit on the planning board, but I do want to make clear that I am here tonight not as a representative of the planning board, which actually has nothing to do with the sewer construction or with the wastewater construction. That is not in our bailiwick. I'm simply here as another resident. I would like us to think a little bit further down the line and a little bit larger than we have been thinking. If Rockport starts to work again with Rockland and with Camden, we will be again beggars at a very small table asking for help and paying more than our fair share to two systems that are very old and very creaky and in fact are in violation of various different federal regulations on a regular basis. We want to work with Camden, we want to work with Rockland, we want to work within the county. But I suggest that since we are brand new at this, if we simply increase what our plans are and build a little bit bigger system than what we need, we can be the regional center for wastewater treatment. We can take Camden's overflow, we can take Rockland's overflow, we can take everything that we're going to need coming in from Route 90 with a more modern system. Now, it does not cost proportionally the same to increase the size of a system from what has already been established as engineering costs, land costs, and so forth. We risk not only not having Rockport expand to get the housing that it desperately needs, the housing that the whole state needs, the whole country needs, but we risk things like possible expansion for the hospital. The hospital right now sends its wastewater down to Rockland, but Rockland cannot handle it during the day, so the hospital had to build a storage facility so they could send their waste down at night when the Rockland system can handle it still. If the hospital is to expand and grow and become a more integral part of Maine Health, it will need more wastewater disposal and its capability. And Rockland has no plans, as far as I know, to build a new system or to enlarge their system. So I think for the future, for the whole county, for the whole mid-coast area, we ought to think of what Rockport is planning as a service to the entire community, as a joint process with other towns. They can send their overload to us. They can send their wastewater to us when their facilities are in repair or in poor repair. And we can charge them the same way that they charge us now, so that in the end, Rockport, which is centrally located between the two towns, can provide the service for both of the towns and increase our dependence on one another, but do it with a more modern system, do it with a system that's designed to take that kind of load right from the start, and a system that uses contemporary systems and technologies which the Camden and Rockland systems do not use. So I am in favor of the proposal, but I'm also in favor of enlarging it a bit. And I also want to ask that two questions. One, what happens if both proposals, the proposal for the wastewater plant and the proposal to study the plant, what happens legally if they both pass, which is a distinct possibility? What will happen? I would like an answer from somebody who knows what would happen if they both passed. And secondly, I would like the study, if it passes, to include repairs and costs necessary at Rockland and at Camden infrastructure to determine what the overall cost to Rockport is of doing the plant and the overall cost to Rockport is of not doing the plant. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jen.
Good evening. I'm Joan Welsh. As of January, I've been a Rockport resident for 30 years. It surprised me. I really appreciate and support the remarks of the four people who have just spoken, and I'm really interested in what Jan points out. It's something I think worth considering, because we could be, we're in the middle of Rockland and with Camden, and perhaps we could be thinking of the whole region in a more creative way that would be helpful to both.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to try to work with Camden and to investigate what the comparison of the costs would be. I suspect, as others have mentioned, that given the infrastructure needs that Camden has, it may be even more costly for us to work with them than it is now. And also, I think it's really important that it not cost us more than what Camden residents are paying, but also that we need to expand, and not just out Route 90, I think there are many homes in Rockport, even in the village. I know of some close to the post office that are not on the sewer system. So really looking beyond just some of the growth areas of the town, doing a better job of getting people off of septic systems and onto our current sewer system. So I appreciate all the hard work. I really thank the task force. And I understand and would like to see us work with Camden to kind of help address some of the concerns that citizens have about that, relationship. I think we owe that. But I doubt that it will be that positive for Rockport, but I think we need to know, and a comparison of the costs going forward of both paths is important for us to know. So, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Doug, I guess we'll let Betsy.
Oh, sorry. I'll be quick. I'm Betsy Elwin. I've also lived in Rockport for almost 30 years. And I just want to also voice my support for this warrant article. I don't want to repeat everything everybody said because I agree with most of what's been said. But I do want to just point out, I think this is a win-win because if we move forward with this, we're taking our destinies into our own hands and we're saying, okay, we have a problem and here's a way to fix it. It doesn't cost taxpayers who are not on the sewer system or on the expansion lines a cent. It doesn't cost them anything. The people who are sewer users will pay more, but if you look at the graphs that were provided in some of the information, it's not going to cost very much more than doing nothing and paying the increased fees that Camden is going to require of us. And at the end of the day, we'll have a new system that works better and will serve us for the future. And then there's the middle group, the people that are on the proposed sewer line but not currently sewer users. For them, it will cost them a little something, but I look at that as an insurance policy because if their septic systems fail, they can hook up to the sewer system and it'll be a lot less expensive than trying to put in a new septic system. So I think there's sort of those three groups that I think about, and I think that there's benefit to all of them. Because if there is new development, as several speakers have said there will be if the sewer line is expanded, that will help all taxpayers in Rockport because it'll expand the tax base. And I've heard some people criticize that as being speculative, but I think the most speculative thing is thinking that we can do nothing and hope that Camden comes around and we somehow have a magical solution that's going to solve all the problems that the Camden system has. So I support the warrant article, and thank you all for your help with getting this project moving.
Thanks, Betsy. Doug, you wanted to?
I just wanted to make a quick comment on what Jan and Joan said about building the plant a little larger, because I think that's such a great idea, and it's a question that I had too. Could we become the center of the sewage area? And the answer is sort of yes. The technology that we are proposing is a membrane technology, and these membranes come in individual units. So for instance, the design of the plan that we have now, I'm just picking a number, may have 10 of these units, but it's very easy, technically speaking, to just start adding more of these membrane reactors to the system. It's sort of a plug and play down the road. It's not where you start off and you build a bowl and that can only take so much. So it's definitely something we should look at. Should we add a few more of these membranes to the system and work something out with Camden and Rockland so we could accept some of their waste? So that's definitely a real possibility. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, everyone who came to talk about this particular article. We'll go on through the warrant articles here. The next one is Article 4, and this is, shall the town adopt the amendments to the land use ordinance zoning map And this is a particular change to change a parcel zone that's located at map 20, lot 182. And this happens sometimes with our zoning, the way we're zoned. Sometimes a lot can be split between two different zoning districts, and it's not always discovered right away. But when it is, then we try to correct it in this fashion. So this is a lot that is, at this point, splits between 903 coastal residential and 906 mixed business residential. And the idea is to put it all in 906 mixed business residential. Any comment on that? Next is Article 5, and this is, shall the town adopt the amendments to the land use ordinance to place the planned unit development ordinance within and to be known as Section 817 planned unit development with some amendments to definitions in the accompanying planned unit development. Any comments? Article 6, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport land use ordinance to place an affordable housing ordinance within and to be known as Section 818 affordable housing. So this is a series of new ordinances that are designed to encourage affordable housing construction in Rockport. Any comment on that? Next, Article 7, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport land use ordinance regarding Section 804 cluster development and related amendments to Section 917 land use table and with proposed amendments to definitions accompanying cluster development. So cluster development is a provision within our land use ordinance, and these are some changes and adjustments made, again, for the purpose of enhancing the appeal of building affordable housing in Rockport. Any comment on that? Go ahead. Sure.
Is that related to the state?
That's a good point, Joan. A number of these provisions arise out of the attempt to comply with LD 2003, which were state sort of mandates, really, on communities. To our planning board's credit, they took what the state was requiring and really looked carefully at Rockport's land use ordinance and did what was required by the state, but also used that as an opportunity to sort of make it Rockport specific and, again, further enhance affordable housing opportunities here in Rockport.
And I would just, if I could add to that,
Yeah.
I think the planning board, Orion, there was a lot of hard work, extra meetings.
Yeah.
Hard work doesn't, washing machines work hard too, right? There's that saying. But the planning board really put in overtime to try to make what was a state model fit for Rockport. And a lot of credit goes to them, that whole group, and Orion for putting this into a package that our residents can digest and vote on. And so many thanks for their efforts.
Yeah, and thank you, Joan, because that does give us sort of the umbrella under which all these are sort of broken out as warrant articles, but that's the sort of mission that those warrant articles were developed under. Next is, I forget if I asked for comment on Article 7. I guess that was the question. Article 8, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport land use ordinance regarding 918 dimension tables, A and B, and related amendments to Section 917 land use table, and with proposed amendments to definitions accompanying these amendments. And this sort of goes to making some minimum lot sizes smaller so we can sort of accomplish and allow denser housing in particular places within Rockport where that is appropriate. Any comment on Article 8? Article 9, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport land use ordinance regarding Chapter 900? And this, again, includes, is really changes designed to meet the requirements of the state LD 2003 provisions. Any comment on Article 9? Article 10, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport land use ordinance regarding Section 604, accompanying amendments to the definitions in Section 302, and related amendments to Section 917 land use table? Any comments on that? Okay. Article 11, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport land use ordinance regarding Section 816? And this, again, is an LD 2003 sort of driven changes to our land use ordinance. Any comment? Okay. Moving on, Article 12, and now we're moving into budget questions. And this Article 12 is the town budget, and it's to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following expenditures for 2024, 2025 fiscal year. Do I need to read?
I don't think you have to.
Okay, that would-
Everyone here has a copy.
Yeah,
If
and
anyone needs a copy, it's available here at
Yeah,
the table.
so these are the various amounts budgeted for each of our departments and operations within the town. And the Budget Committee, as this warrant article indicates, the Budget Committee made some recommendations, and I guess of the 5 Budget Committee recommendations, 4 were adopted by the Select Board and 1 was not. And those, the budget is a Select Board 4 and 0 against, so unanimous in support of the budget provisions. Any comment on Article 12, the budget? Doug?
Cole again, Rockport resident. I just want to comment on the emergency medical service part of the budget, which is actually the second highest amount at $1,191,665. I am a huge supporter of municipal-based EMS services. I've been writing Jonathan for probably close to 2 years.
Yes.
That this is the right,
all
that this
true.
is the right way to go, and to move away from private for-profit ambulance services. The only reason I'm saying anything about this is that I would have preferred to see Rockport working with Camden and Rockland on this, because I think this is really a service that can be more efficiently provided on a larger scale. But again, I just bring this up because, again, the communications between Camden and Rockport were not helpful. We weren't, making any progress. So Rockport's going on its own. I'm fine with that. I think it's the right direction. If I had a crystal ball, I would predict in 2 years, we're probably going to have ambulance at Camden, Rockport, Rockland, all working together, basically on a countywide level. But in the same way that the sewer has been handicapped by lack of communications, I think we're going about this a little bit inefficiently, although I'm a complete supporter of it, and it'll have my vote. Thank you.
And I want to just point out, because this is something people don't always pay attention to, but mutual aid is something that is a place where the towns work incredibly well together. If there's an emergency that needs to be responded to anywhere in our county or even adjacent counties, our fire department shows up, our police department shows up, their police department, their fire department, the emergency responders have got our backs, and they're there, and there are no town lines or boundaries when it comes to that level of response and mutual aid, which is a huge success story in our area. It's just because it's something I've been learning, and it's very impressive. Okay, any other comments on Article 12, the budget? Article 13. And this is, so the budget is split into, so we just got the bad news, which is all the expenses. Article 13 is the good news, that's all the revenue. And anybody have any comments on the revenue side, Article 13? Next is Article 14. And this is accepting some roads into, the roads that were privately built in a subdivision and are now proposed to be brought into the town of Rockport public roads. So they'll receive snowplow services and become like every other public road that probably runs by most of our houses. And it's a 1,600 feet private right-of-way that would now turn into public road. Any comments on Article 14? Article 15. This is a citizen initiative that I think that has been alluded to earlier tonight with respect to Article 3. And this is a citizen petition that says, do you favor requiring the Rockport Select Board to appoint an advisory committee to study the costs and benefits of a collaborative approach for improving wastewater treatments in the towns of Rockport and Camden, including a municipal utility district, and to have such committee report findings to the board prior to the 2025 Rockport Town Meeting and prior to funding the construction of a new wastewater treatment plant. And I think this is one when the select board, I'm just going to give a quick bit of background to this. This is one where the select board, when we made the decision at our April 8th meeting to add Article 3 onto the warrant article, we talked about how Article 15 is not mutually, you can support Article 15 and Article 3. They're not mutually exclusive. It's possible, based on the way that the funding works for the wastewater treatment plant, the first year of that, assuming that the wastewater treatment plant is approved under Article 3, the first year after that's approved is is time spent working on design hiring a contractor, doing bids, working on design documents. So if something were to happen in time with Camden that was just, manna from heaven, we all are getting along, we can cut our sewer rates, all of these things. If that were to happen through the course of this Article 15, there would still be time to shift in that direction. So if some of our voters feel strongly that Article 15 should be approved, they can vote for that, but I would encourage, maybe I shouldn't say that here, but you can also support Article 3, as many of our residents here tonight have voiced their support of. So anyway, anybody here to comment on Article 15? Okay, and that is it for our warrant article, or warrants for the ballot. All right, moving on. Next to the agenda is, let me find my agenda now after all that. I think it's the Opera House. Oh, no, the consent agenda.
Other funny questions.
Denise,
lost my
before in the amendments to the agenda portion, were we gonna go through the public input and then the
Yeah,
amendments?
I'm sorry, I've
No, I just-
lost after all this. Where's my agenda?
Oh, sorry.
Here we go. Okay. No, that doesn't have the agenda in it. I have my minutes. That's the consent
Where's the
agenda.
doghouse, Jeff? The doghouse is usually, we can see.
There it
They
is.
can
Thank
see
you.
it, but we
Yeah,
talk-
where's everybody else can see the agenda, and I'm sorry about that.
No, it's,
So we've already we've done the town manager's report update. Do we have any public input on non-agenda items? Any amendments to the agenda?
those two emails that I'd sent, I don't know if there were two individuals who, there were two committee members who had interest in joining the comp plan committee.
Okay.
Deborah Hall and Bill Bowe.
Do you want us to?
Conservation Commission, this will be probably the last board meeting until the end of June. And so I wondered, though we don't have, Bill is out of town, and we just got confirmation from Deborah this afternoon that she was willing to take on that task. If the board was comfortable, it would, I think, help move things along a bit in the next 6 weeks if that, those are two individuals the board knows well, so you could,
We could add a new
Take that
agenda
action.
item.
yeah, and
Okay.
and appoint both to that group, but that's, certainly up to you.
Okay, so we could add that as our first action item, the new members of the comp plan.
Sorry, yep,
Okay.
I'll choke up over it.
Now that everybody's left, I forgot to mention that we just got $1 million grant for the wastewater treatment facility. Yeah, but,
I didn't know my banker would make it happen so
I
fast.
know, well done, Michael, thank you. A little private donation. So, bad timing on that.
That's, hey, they're
But
still
that's on
watching.
that special agenda that is no longer to be found, so,
10 people.
yeah,
Jeff says
keep them
there's,
coming.
Jeff says there's 10 people watching, so there's,
Okay,
just
so
tell
at
your
least the
friends.
10 people watching,
Everyone out
yes.
there, yeah.
Yes, so, and
Tell
that's,
their friends.
that's just the first of many. Okay, so consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda, the school warrants and approve meeting minutes for 2 meetings. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Kim, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Great.
I consent to the consent.
Consent to the consent, yeah. Okay, well then, let's move into action items, and then the first action item is adding 2 members to the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Deborah Hall, who is a former Select Board Chair and is Chair of the Economic Development Committee, and has been working on the comprehensive plan just in terms of helping to draft some sections, but is interested in this, in the comprehensive plan, has been in Rockport for over 20 years, has a good overview of how things operate in Rockport. And then Bill Bowe, who was was he the chair of our wastewater task force, and is a relatively 3 years now, resident of Rockport, but has just jumped in with both feet. We couldn't be talking about the Article 3 warrant for this sewer project without Bill Bowe's expertise and just time commitment. So I think, it's great to have people on the Comprehensive Plan Committee who have particular expertise in a comprehensive plan, but it also takes people who really are dedicated and put their time into it. So I think both would be great additions.
And he's also member of the Conservation Commission.
Good point,
Very,
Michael.
very active in that.
Yes.
And I should add to that point, Michael, so Megan Dwyer, who is on the Comprehensive Plan Committee, she informed Orion and I that her time doesn't provide as much added time to put in on the comp plan side of things. And so wanting to have that involvement of the Conservation Commission, Orion reached out to Megan and said, well, let's take the co-chair, vice chair. I'm not sure how it works, but the second commander, could Bill slide over? And she said, great idea. So she has looked at that end of it. So to continue that, to keep that voice of the Conservation Commission heavily involved, because at this point, it's editing, but it's also stitching the quilt together, right? All these various pieces, and not, if it gets too far afield into individual committees, you can start to tear that quilt. So hopefully we can start to get this thing to land pretty soon.
Okay. And are there terms that we're aware of, or do we just?
I don't think there are terms.
Okay, because when the
associated.
our goal is to
Yeah.
have this done within the next year, not sooner.
Hopefully it's as short a term as possible.
Yeah, right. That would be the goal for the
Yeah.
benefit of the town. Okay, so is there a motion to appoint Deborah Hall and Bill Bowe to the Comprehensive Plan Committee?
I make a motion, we appoint Deborah Hall and Bill Bowe to the Comprehensive Plan Committee.
Okay.
Second.
Eric? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Great. All right, next is act on Opera House fee schedule.
Megan had hoped to be here, but she had a last-minute conflict that ran in, so I'm going to do my best to be Megan tonight. Periodically, and particularly in the spring, the fee schedule for the Opera House is renewed, and they take a look at and see where they are. In particular, we've seen an increase in the cost for technical services, and that it's not just Jeff, but actually just hiring someone to provide those services. It's very difficult to find someone. They're very specialized, and obviously need to be compensated for that time. But to operate our building here, we really need to make that a pass-through. That's not something that the town can accept as a cost to make sure that the building works. So there's a lot of aspects to that, but also just in the regular maintenance and upkeep of the building, those costs really need to be passed through to our users as well. So the fee schedule here talks to that need. The meeting room space from last year to this year is fairly similar. It's more about the larger events upstairs that take more time to set up, more time for tear down. Those are really the two areas that get addressed most in this change. We've also had, and it really didn't occur to me when I wrote this, but it did for Megan, the space looks a lot different than it did before. So there's interest. There's interest in the space and hoping we can, obviously, not work in the red in offering this new space, but the ability to open it up to new avenues and new users is something that's really exciting.
That's great. Any questions or? All right, do we have a motion?
Somewhere.
I move the board approve the Opera House fee schedule as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great. And thank you for you and Megan and for working on that, because I think that is important, that we sort of make sure we're charging what's appropriate for use of.
Bring it up to the times.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll give Megan, Carrie, Rebecca, they get all the credit, and Paul, whoever he is on the Appalachian Trail, those who know Paul, who works in
Oh,
this
is he
building.
hiking me?
He's on the Appalachian Trail, so I'm sure he's not watching, he's not among the
Let's hope
10.
not,
But
yeah.
it's a good crew we have here.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of good things that'll,
As long as
that
he's
are happening.
by a lion or a bear or.
All right, next is, act on elections warden appointment. John?
So this is a part of running any state election. You have to have a warden. Effectively, they're the individual who's responsible for making sure that the conduct of the election occurs as it should. Realistically, the town clerk should be the person who is ensuring those things occur, but by law, we have the wardens. The warden is a necessary piece of that. And we've had more staff who have taken on those roles with election day. In olden times, this way back, the board used to take that position of warden and they would rotate through the day of election day. And they'd take one would take a couple hours and so forth and so on. So be thankful you're tasking this and delegating, because otherwise you'd have part of your day on the 11th.
So moved.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, say no more. Okay, we got a motion from Kim to approach.
Oh, probably should say who it
I
is.
moved
I move the board approve Rebecca Ewan, did I say it right?
Yep.
As election warden.
a second from Michael. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Thank you, Rebecca, for doing that for us.
Yes. Excited.
Next, we have
Says
act
set that for
on
50
quitclaim deed map T02, lot A07-018.
Timeshare.
I was gonna say, it must be another timeshare.
So when you
Okay.
see that T, anytime there's a T, T01, 02, or T03, timeshare.
Okay, so these are all these little Samoset lots
Yeah.
that are.
There's one that isn't, but yeah,
okay,
the
but
last
This
one.
one is.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move the board approve the quitclaim deed as presented.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes,
Okay.
my arm's tired.
Next item, act on quitclaim deed map T01, lot A05-004.
Same person.
Okay, another motion?
May I make a motion that
Okay.
we,
Approved.
approve that? Brain, sorry. I make a motion that the board approve that quitclaim deed as presented.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yes,
Okay.
same person again.
I know. Act on a quitclaim deed map T03, lot B02-046. We have a motion?
Sure, I move the board approve the quitclaim deed as presented.
Second.
Second from Kim. Any discussion?
I have a question, actually.
Okay.
If it's the same guy, is it like multiple weeks of something? Okay,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay, now this is not, this is act on quitclaim deed map 026, lot 217. Again, it's for unpaid taxes. Is there a motion?
I'll move that the board approve the quitclaim deed as presented.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
You're a yes, Eric?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. So we're done with our action items. The next is discuss the preferred time and location for the organizational meeting on June 12th. So that's the meeting, I think under our charter, we're supposed to have that meeting within 24 hours of the
Yeah.
election on June 11th. So that, see, Eric won't be there for that. And we'll have,
Nope.
you know, two other, I mean, I'm running for reelection, and I may or may not be there, and then there will be.
So, if I may say so publicly, I hope so.
So we're gonna do our best tonight to sort of talk about this, but I think we also have to recognize there might be some other folks who are affected. We typically do it, Wednesday night at like 6, usual time, usual place. And you say it could occur remotely, but I think it would be best to do it in person. And that's swearing in of anybody new.
So 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock on the 12th.
I like that, yeah.
Okay.
We will have to, we'll check with all the candidates just to ensure that no one's out of town or, but even if they are, we had one 2 years ago, I think one of the board members was away. And I don't know how we did that. I think we just had 4 people vote, if I remember correctly. So-
Okay.
I thought it was called that.
That won't be filmed though, will it?
Don't know.
Is it gonna be here?
I thought
It's
it
a
was-
very
I thought he
quick
called it.
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
It just is electing the chair and vice chair and swearing in.
So is it gonna be here or at the library?
I would think here, right? From now on, we're gonna
Yes,
be here.
everything will be here because once the camera's moved, it's,
It's not going away.
we don't want to see Jeff have to push a cart back across the street and,
Wait at the crosswalk with his TVs.
right, we don't, poor Jeff.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Next is select board liaison reports.
Okay,
Okay,
I will chat for a minute.
okay.
A couple of things. And again, we have to, it's things you guys will have to decide upon. But at the last meeting for our Midcoast Solid Waste, we did end up going with Waste Management again for another 3-year contract.
Okay.
Not necessarily my preferred choice, but we were kind of being held up at that point because we had been holding off Waste Management's contract for almost a year, trying to decide if PERC was gonna be an option or not. So, we basically needed to make a decision at that point because the contract expires on June 30th. So, just so you know, that's where that lands, so that's gonna be another set fee, assuming the state doesn't increase waste fees or whatnot. The other part is, when you get your election figured out, you either have to decide who's going to take these spots, because there are now 2 open spots on the Midcoast Solid Waste Board, or appoint 2 people from the community to take those spots. And you don't really want to wait too long, because I'm willing to do memory dumps of knowledge to whoever takes the spot. But I don't know how long I'm gonna be around after the election.
Okay.
So
And when's the next?
theoretically, it's supposed to be July to appoint the next chair.
Okay.
Because I'm currently chair and secretary, so,
Big shoes to fill. Big shoes to fill.
yeah. So I just want you to be aware that this is coming up, and it is kind of a pressing issue. Now, if I'm around in July and you still haven't picked somebody, I'm willing to go to the meeting until
Till we have some.
you have somebody, but my theory is I'll probably still be here, but you do need to decide if you're going to pick community members or if there's people on the board willing to take the seats.
Yep.
So,
Good heads up.
I mean, and it isn't overly complex. on going to the meetings. There's only like one every 60 days or so. And Dave St. Laurent does the majority. He puts the meeting packet together and everything. It's not like you're overwhelmed with going to a million meetings, but there is a lot of knowledge that I've built up over 3 years that needs to be passed on to somebody. And I don't want it to just go by the wayside. And I mean, even if I'm not here, I can make
No.
a phone. I'm willing to talk to whoever you put on the spot. I just want you to be aware.
And I think it's best, I mean, it doesn't have to be board members, but I think it's good for the board to be involved
Yeah.
in that entity.
My hope is it's at least, you know, if you have somebody willing on the board, that one board member should technically be present in one of those positions. And I'd like it to actually be, to see somebody from the community that's interested in waste be the second member, only because then you're getting kind of a perspective outside of somebody sitting here. You know, that's just my idea, but some of the other board members at that level actually agree with that that's a good idea.
It's a good balance between.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, thanks for the heads up on that and.
yeah.
Yeah, my mind
start
is
thinking.
swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot to it. I mean, you've got wastewater coming out of there, which is extreme, and with all the rain we had early in the year, that really pushes, and you've got PFAS, and you've got to figure out what to do with the waste, and where it's gonna go, and there's a hopper gonna die, and, you know, these are all things to get talked about, and, you know, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, important, interesting.
Yeah, and it's a forever thing. So it's not like just because it closes in 7 to 14 years or whatever the new time frame is, it's like 14 years again. It will be there forever and need care. It needs perpetual
needs to
care
be
for the
monitored.
water. Right. Even once it's capped off, there's still going to be wastewater that has to come out of the ground, because if the wastewater gets too high, then it overflows and you've got a
No problem.
potential hazard.
Yep. Great. Okay.
So, remember that.
Any other liaison reports?
Not from me.
Okay.
I don't have anything official. I mean, I know that the Conservation Commission is sponsoring, and there's another talk
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, part of their climate resilience
Yes.
series.
Okay, good. I'm at a loss for anything creative to talk about. Sorry.
How about you, Kim?
I got nothing. The EMS committee is pretty much non-existent. I can't get a quorum, and it's really kind of useless anyway.
Yeah, things are changing so fast that it,
So there was a letter that the town of Lincolnville is circulating to request that their contract with Northeast Mobile Health remove attendance and effectively the involvement of the EMS review committee. I personally have no objection, Kim and I talked about this, I have no objection to that idea. I certainly recommend a change of the contract that remove that requirement. I could go back and talk about why it was created, but it doesn't really matter. I don't think it's working right now for anyone's benefit. And I think every town
It's
has their own
ineffective.
ideas, so,
yeah.
It really isn't effective,
Yeah.
because there's no, if something is brought up, it's like no consequence. It gets discussed and then, okay.
Yeah, and was the point was to sort of keep an eye on and raise concerns with Northeast Ambulance.
Exactly.
and,
and the difficulty is trying to hold to account,
Yeah.
but every town has their own contract, so there was never the ability for, well, a vote of that committee therefore says for contracts, it never worked that way, so. I support it.
Yeah.
And, if, I would assume that there will be a revised contract on the board's agenda at the June, vote, at the June meeting, which should be the fourth Monday. Just to remind everyone of that. There'll be the wastewater budget, but also probably a revised contract with Northeast Mobile Health to account for the fact that their rate has gone up, which we know because that's part of our budget is that increase, but I just,
That hasn't officially happened, so.
there'll be an action that will come before you, and that's how we'll work through a process, so.
Okay. Yes,
I do have, the Camden Rockport Pathways Committee
okay.
recently changed, they'd been meeting jointly each month, and it was finally decided to simplify life and just have joint meetings of both towns quarterly. So the off meetings, towns can work on their own stuff together, and that
Oh,
seems to
good.
be working quite well.
That makes sense.
There was discussion at the last joint meeting that they really are hoping to have as much involvement as possible on any road project planning, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just kind of passing this along. The tree clearing on Main Street is one that has been a bone of contention, I think. Yeah, I drove out there, because I'd never go out on that road.
Right.
But I did drive out, and I was like, I thought it looked kind of nice, and I can see the reasons for doing it. But as the committee is investing in trying to get more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly routes and all that, they're concerned that the speed along that particular route might increase now because it's more wide open, et cetera, et cetera. And they really are hoping to do what can be done by the town and whoever else to make sure there are proper lanes for pedestrian safety, Main Street and Park Street, and, on and on. Yeah.
Well, something we learned through that whole village partnership initiative, working with the DOT contractor, is if you narrow your lanes, that slows traffic down,
Yes.
in a
and-
way that isn't obvious, but it somehow,
Oh, psychologically, it does.
Yeah.
Except on Park Street.
Except on Park Street.
are they narrow and people are still,
There's no line down the middle of Park Street, so they drive in the middle of the road.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah, so you really need to have the lanes
You need-
designated. Yeah, yeah. And then that's true, they spoke of all that too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So I think that there are, I don't know if we can talk about VPI at all, but I think that this, I think that there's definitely room at the table for Pathways and others to start think about and be involved as the town sort of plans ahead of some of these projects.
yeah,
I mean, for example, and I had mentioned this to Pathways a few years ago, that there is a pretty substantial project that will need to be discussed on Mechanic Street. You may remember we put some money aside in the budget to talk about engineering, and there's a lot of, anybody who's been on that road in the summer, I mean, everyone's gotta get to Beauchamp fast as they humanly can. And we also have a sidewalk that's about 1.5 feet wide, and we have,
with utility poles in the middle of it.
right, and we've got cars parked, so there's a lot of things going on there. And, as somebody who just visited my in-laws yesterday on Mother's Day, I'd prefer that not look like, Pearl Street in Camden. So how do we do that? How do we make this safe, have ped, have bike, have parking, have the ability for us all to drive? And I think Pathways could be a big help in that.
I think that's an excellent idea, yeah.
Street trees need to be considered.
Well, there's a lot of street trees there.
No, in a line, not just
Well, yeah.
skeleton.
We've got cedars that are sort of, I know what you're saying, but yeah. I think all of that, we've got, I think there'll be some community forums, meeting with neighbors along that stretch. Yeah, I think, there's like these complete streets, the ideas that people talk about, right? I think, how do we and also recognize, let's just also say this, Mechanic Street in January is very different than Mechanic Street in July. So how do we,
Yeah.
balance those things? I think the door is open and the conversation is open for all of those involvement. And I hope that Pathways will participate in that.
And I haven't asked before, but the complete streets is something that was mentioned too, hoping that we can adopt as
Incorporate
much of it
those
as
ideas
possible.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, great, okay. I have a couple, so Legacy Rockport, I've mentioned it before, but we have a new sign down at the Marine Park for the Vulcan locomotive, and there was just a ceremony a week and a half ago. James Lent, who was really the person behind that, it was the awarding of his Eagle Scout Award for having done that, and I just wanted to recognize him here and the work that he did, because I think that's a really nice feature to have down in the park. And it truly took a village working with James, various folks helping to make that happen. So it's a really special improvement down there. And John touched on the VPI. This is the Village Partnership Initiative. We've got virtually a final report. Still some back and forth, but I think there's some really good ideas to improve sort of flow within. And this is, the study area is fairly limited. It's not like we looked at all of Rockport and what could we do. This is really just because of the bridge. It looks like the top portion of the bridge is going to be replaced by DOT, and that opens up potentially some opportunities for us both to create some additional sidewalks coming into the downtown area, improve flow for people who don't know the secret code about which sidewalk you have to jump from and hop to get safely around through Rockport. So that's, it's a test.
Survival of the
And
fittest.
sometimes I'm a little worried about the people who aren't passing the test, and so far they haven't gotten hit. But when I see people along that guardrail, I'm like, oh, yeah, not good. So that's been a good activity. Parks Committee has been working down, over in Memorial Park. There's some new plantings around the memorial there, just cleaning up for the season. Some new plantings there. Marine Park, cleaning up at Andre. So there's been some good citizen work down there. Doug's the co-chair of the Parks Committee, so thank you, Doug. And Economic Development Committee met and is very supportive, not unanimous on the committee, but most are very supportive of the sewer, Article 3, for some of the reasons we heard here in terms of housing availability improvement for Rockport's controlling its economic development future. I guess that's it. All right. Well. So as Eric's already trying to pass off responsibility, this is our last meeting with Eric Boucher as our vice chair of our select board. And Eric, this is a small token from the town to you in appreciation for your service on the select board. It's been a good 3 years, and you've contributed a lot. We have I almost mentioned on the warrant article, but there used to be about 10 items at the end of every June ballot that were all these just routine items that we always had to approve, that all our voters had to approve. Every ballot had pages of just routine stuff, and thanks to Eric's pushing, we revised the charter to put all that in the charter so it doesn't have to be voted on every year, and other good things that Eric has done for us and kept us focused on. So we really appreciate your service to the town, and
It's been fun
working with you. Yeah. So, thanks, Eric.
It's been a good time.
And
you helped,
best of luck.
You helped get me started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know way more about Moss now than I ever thought
See?
I would,
I know.
Eric. And but I would say that though I think you knew that the ideas sometimes were pushing an envelope, but you always had the right intention, and I really appreciated that. And it took time, I think, for some of those ideas to become a thing that actually changed. But I think there was a lot of great thoughts, and I appreciate what you've done and made my job easier. You weren't in all the time, but when you spoke at meetings, we all listened and thought about it. And like I said, sometimes it takes us a little while to catch up to you. But thank you.
And he didn't come to the office every day and bug you.
No, in honor of no May, no May,
No
no
mo.
mo
Be like
May.
Eric.
No moment.
I adopted that by default.
I know, I think a few of
Same
us
here.
are like, well, that sounds easy, I'll call it no mo May.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. So, thanks, Eric. And,
Thank you.
all right, well, on that on that note, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, okay, then I move that we adjourn.
Second.
That's appropriate, very well done. Any discussion, all those in favor?
Hi, you're here.
Okay, great.